All right, I'm going to show you how to import a Adobe Photoshop file into Adobe Premiere. Okay, so you probably don't see Adobe Premiere down here in your toolbar. So what you can do is go up to the search and type in Adobe Premiere. Okay, then once you see this icon, you could just click and drag it down into the toolbar. Now I've already done that, so I don't need to do that, but you can go ahead and do that to start. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and open up Adobe Premiere. Now, while this is loading, the same principles apply in terms of where you're going to save your work, creating a new folder on your desktop so that you don't get confused by the files and the different names and so on and so forth. So once you open up Adobe Premiere, something similar to this will open up. And I'm just going to click on New Project, and then this is where you're going to select the location. I'm going to click Browse and create a location on my desktop. Okay, and so you can call it last name, first name, animated GIF, for example, animated Photoshop. Okay, so I already created a folder. I'm keeping it in Elements Video. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go last name, first name, animated Photoshop. That's what I'm going to call it. Okay, so Carrera Steve animated Photoshop. Okay, and then I'm just going to push OK. Okay, now while this is loading, I want to explain to you that an Adobe Photoshop file is you're working with layers. Okay, and so the Adobe Premiere, this is what it should look like when it opens up. Okay, something similar to this. When this opens up, basically you have to remember that you are importing your Adobe Photoshop files in individual layers. Okay, so I'm going to go over here, import media to start. I can just go File, Import, and then find the file that you're going to work with, which should be in one of the folders that you created, and your Adobe Photoshop folder should be in there. So for now, I'm going to use this one right here. All right, from Evan. Okay, I'm going to click Import. Okay, and so now it says, how do you want to import these layers? Merge all layers. If I merge all layers, they all come in as one document. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to go as individual layers. Okay, and then I want to select all. Now this color fill you don't really need, but I just select them all anyway, and you can see they're all here. Okay, and so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on OK, and you'll see all the different, there's 10 items in this folder, and all of them individually come in to Adobe Premiere. All right, so now I'm going to bring each of them in one at a time, and the way mine is lined up is that it's going from the bottom up. Okay, so this is the very top layer, this is the very bottom layer. So I'm going to start with the very bottom layer by clicking and dragging over into the to create a sequence. Okay, and so this is the black layer, so there shouldn't be anything but black. Okay, and what I could do is I can change this just so I don't get confused. Okay, because this has now become the sequence. I could just put last name, first name, animated sequence, and then this changes the name here. Okay, so now I'm just going to go one layer at a time. Okay, and I'm just going to drag it on top of each layer. It's like a collage, so everything you put on top. Okay, and even though there's no video track showing here, when you drag on top of it, it will show. Okay, and I'm just dragging all of them one by one. Okay, scroll down a little bit so I could see some black, put it in there, scroll down, grab this. Okay, so now I have my composition. This is what it should look like if it was just a regular Photoshop document. Okay, and so now what I want to do is I want to move certain things. Okay, but it has to be based on the layer. All right, so what I can do is first, here's the eyeball. I can start turning off certain layers so that I could see exactly what it is that I'm trying to work with. Okay, so right now, what I'm trying to work with is, let's say, these little lines right here. Okay, so I'm going to actually, that I realize now this is on track number 9. I'm going to click on it, and then this little dialog comes up. If it doesn't come up, then you could just click on Effects Controls. Okay, so I want to change the scale of this. All right, so it's at 100 right now. I'm going to click on this little button right here, and that turns on my scale options. I'm going to go and create a keyframe. So right now this first keyframe is at 100 regular. I'm going to go to the middle of the clip, give or take the middle, and I'm going to go to 110 and push enter. Okay, now you may not notice anything, but there's another keyframe right here. Now I'm going to go down, and I'll just show you exactly what I just did. I brought it all the way back, and in between these keyframes, 1 and 2, I'm going to push spacebar with my blue box selected here, and you see it moving. Okay, now, once it got past the keyframe, it stopped. So I need to key it beyond that. So I'm going to go to the very end over here, and rather than try to pick another scaling size, I'm just going to click reset. And so now it's going to go from 100 to 110 back to 100. Okay, and it gives it the appearance of movement. Okay, so let me turn these layers back on so you can sort of see what it all looks like. All right. Okay, and so that is a little bit of movement there. Okay, so let's say this colorful outline might be another thing that I want to move. Okay, so for this one right here, I'm going to start at 100. Okay, I have to select it first. All right, and now I'm going to turn on the scaling animation. It's at 100. I'm going to go over to the very end. Okay. And what I can do is I can just grab this 100 and click and drag it to the right. Okay, and I'm just going to go all the way through. Okay, so that's a pretty big scaling. Okay, but there's only 2 keyframes here. All right, and so now when I push spacebar, notice that this blue box is selected. I push spacebar, and it's moving. Okay, now once I'm done with, let's say I've done all the animation I want to do, we need to export it, and we'll do that in our next video. All right, if you have any questions, let me know.